Hello everyone and welcome back to yet another video from my channel Interactive Education, running for the best education possible from the student to the student. And today we're going to look at a very interesting concept, and this is a concept which is not there exactly mentioned or discussed in the textbook of the NCERT class 10th portion, but some questions are certainly asked sometimes, and even one question is there in the textbook itself. And this is the concept of blood groups, and it's a very interesting concept, I personally believe. And let's have a look at it. It's certainly related to our heredity and Darwin's principle, Mendel's principles. So we're just going to have a look at that, right? So first of all, what is a blood group? Very common question. What is a blood group? Now we know that all living organisms, usually most of the living organisms, have blood, which is a fluid kind of structure present in the body, and it is responsible for the transport of various substances, right? Now, blood has many components, and we are generally talking about mammalian blood here. Blood has many components. So, components of blood. This is a very general concept. Right, we've been doing this for the past couple of years in our classes, so we're just going to revise it. First is the red blood cells, right? The RBCs. Second are the white blood cells, which is the WBC. Then we have plasma, which is the fluid part. And lastly, we have the platelets, which are the clotting agents. Right? So these are the things. These are the main components. There may be various other components such as proteins, hormones, enzymes, maybe sometimes various other substances. So these are the main four components, right? Now, what is this blood group exactly? This blood group is basically a grouping, a classification of the blood on the basis of the proteins attached to the red blood cells, right? So it's basically grouping the kind of blood depending on its detailed composition, right? So these are what we call blood groups. Now, red blood cells are the ones which determine this blood group specifically. So red blood cells determine blood group. They are the main determiners of the blood group, right? And how do they determine blood group? That's what we're going to study in this module, right? So let's have a look. Now, actually, before we go on to our general blood group, there are some blood grouping systems, right? And these are determined by an organization called the International Society for Blood Transfusion. So this particular organization is the one which is responsible for the blood grouping systems and for the organization of these blood grouping systems and the planning of these blood grouping systems and the acceptance of these blood grouping systems, right? Now, according to this, right, recently it has recognized about 33 systems. 33 blood grouping systems. This organization has recognized recently 33 blood grouping systems, right? There are many methods, many ways to determine blood group, right? And 33 such systems have been recognized, right? But actually, we basically study only two of them, which are the main ones, right? Which we use even in medicine. So the main ones, the main blood grouping systems are two of them. Two very important, which are somewhat interrelated, right? Somewhat, which, well, we have related them. So mainly there are two. One is the ABO blood group system. And the second is the RH blood group system. Okay, so first we have the AB blood group system, and then we have the RH blood group system. Sorry, ABO. Now this ABO blood group system is what determines the classification of blood into A, B, or O blood group, right? So this ABO blood group, we know we have blood groups A positive, A negative, B positive, B negative, C. We don't have C. We have O positive, O negative, right? So this ABO blood group system, this is just used to determine that letter, A, B, or O, right? And that determines on what kind of protein which is attached to the red blood cells. We'll get to that a bit later. Next is RH blood group. So when this ABO blood group just determines the letter, this RH blood group determines the sign, right? And this determines whether the blood is positive or negative. So A positive or A negative, B positive or B negative, O positive or O negative, right? So that is the thing. Okay, now that's what we're going to study. Now, once we've studied the types of blood group systems, before we get into the blood group thing, right, we're just going to study one basic feature, right? So you can just get an idea of what we're going to do. If you take a red blood cell, right, if you take a red blood cell, so suppose this is a red blood cell. Now, it has been observed, right, that a special kind of protein, right, so it's specifically called glycoprotein because it is somewhat related to the blood or into the metabolic activity of the body. So they're commonly called, this is a classification of proteins, that is the glycoproteins. So it has been seen that different blood types have different red blood cells, though the red blood cells are same, but they have certain proteins which are attached to them, right? So there are certain proteins which are attached to to the red blood cells of certain of many of the red blood cells of many blood types which have been seen, right? So these are attached to this red blood cell. And these proteins are what we call glycoproteins, right? There are a certain group of proteins called glycoproteins. And these glycoproteins are attached to certain red blood cells. Sometimes they're even absent, right? And that is a case we're going to study. Depending on this glycoprotein attached, right, to the red blood cell, depending on what kind of glycoprotein has been attached to the red blood cell, we determine the blood group. Okay, so we determine the group of the blood, right? It basically determines the group of the blood, especially in this ABO blood group system, even in the RH blood group system. We'll look at that a bit later, right? So just understand that a protein is attached, some proteins are attached or may not even be attached to red blood cells. So on the basis of that attachment of the protein, we basically group the type of the blood, right? So just understand that for now. The next thing we're going to look at is the allelism, which is involved here, right? Now we've looked at Mendel's experiments, and we looked at the concept that how he studied different genes, different factors, different alleles of different traits, especially in the case of pea plants, right? So he looked at the alleles, right? The different forms of a particular trait, right? So the alleles or the gene or the unit, right, for particular traits is what Mendel studied. It can be for height, it can be for color of the flower, it can be for the shape of the seed, or it can be for the color of the seed, right? Now, the blood too, the blood also shows this particular allelism, right? But the blood shows a very unique kind of allelism, right? And something which is a bit different, and two such things, right? Not only one, two such things. Mendel studied pea plants, right? We remember that. And when he studied pea plants, he saw that usually there are just two alleles for the same trait, right? So for height, you can have a tall allele or a short allele. For color of the flower, usually in the case of pea plant, it was either white or violet, right? Where violet was recessive, white was dominant. Then the color of the seed, it could be green or yellow, where yellow was the dominant and green was the recessive. But there were only two usually alleles of the same trait. But in the case of blood group, and which is an example of this case, there are many others too, it has been seen that there are not only two alleles, right? There's not only one dominant allele, one recessive allele. There can be more than two alleles for the same trait. And this phenomenon of more than two alleles for the same trait is what we call multiple allelism. Right? Multiple allelism. So blood shows multiple allelism. We will see how, right? Multiple allelism. So there are more than two alleles for the same trait, right? Or in this case, we're going to look at the blood group. So in terms of blood group, there can be more than two alleles. We'll have a look at that. The next thing which you should understand, which blood shows, blood is an example of this, and in which we see that it is going against Mendel's law. Now, there's Mendel's law of dominance. There's one law, Mendel's law of dominance, which says that there is one dominant allele, there's one recessive allele, and the dominant allele will suppress the recessive allele and get expressed, right? But Mendel never said that there can be two alleles which can be equally dominant, right? He only said there'll be one allele which is recessive, one allele which is dominant. But blood again shows an exception to this, and there are various other exceptions as well, but we are talking about blood here. So blood shows an exception. It shows that out of many of the alleles, basically there are three alleles which blood has. Out of these three alleles, two are equally dominant, right? So if they both are there together, then both will be expressed. They are both equally dominant, and if they are both present in the allelic pair, then they both will be expressed. And this phenomenon of expression of characteristics by two alleles that are equally dominant and equally express themselves is what we call codominance. What do we call it? It's codominance. Again, this is an exception to Mendel's law of dominance. Right? So there are two alleles which are equally dominant and equally get expressed when present in the same allelic pair. Okay? So that is what we call codominance. So these are the two things which we will observe in this blood group study. Okay? Right. Now we finally come to our basic main part about which all this ruckus is going on, right? ABO blood group, O blood group, whatever. We're going to study the blood groups now, right? So let's now look at the two kinds of blood groups, right? Basically, first is the ABO blood group, right? ABO blood group. Now, in this ABO blood group, basically, it has been seen that blood can have three kinds of alleles, right? Three different kinds of alleles for the blood group. One is a dominant allele, which is called IA. Right? This is the first allele, IA, capital I and superscript A, right? IA. It is a dominant allele. Dominant allele. Right? Next is another dominant allele. As I told you, there is codominance. So there's another kind of dominant allele which is seen in blood. That is I superscript B. This is dominant allele also. Okay, and lastly we have one more allele which is recessive. It is shown with a small I, a lowercase I, and it is the recessive allele. Okay, now IA, IB and I. Again, these are the different kinds of alleles seen, but again there'll only be a pair. There'll not be more than two in one cell. So let us see. This is IA. So obviously this presence of A might have given you the idea that this basically shows, this is basically responsible for the A blood group. This B, obviously you could have guessed it is responsible for the B blood group. And this I, this one is responsible for the O blood group. Right? So that's it. That's all you need to know for now, right? These are the alleles which are present, right? So let us see. The combinations that can be formed, right? So the possible combinations or possible allelic pairs. Let us have a look. Suppose we have IA and IA. Right? Again, you can guess what blood group there will be in the cell. There will be A blood group. right? And this, in this case, the red blood cell will have this particular kind of glycoprotein attached to it, right? And this is the A glycoprotein, or it is also called A antigen. Antigen is basically that name for that glycoprotein. A antigen, right? So in that blood cell, in the blood cells, red blood cells, there'll be only A antigen, right? That A type of glycoprotein. Number 2, if there is IA and small I, again, this will be expressed. This IA will be expressed. I will be recessive. Again, you will just get A blood group, right? Same thing happens when the opposite occurs, and that's it. Well, okay. So these are the various possible cases for A blood group: IA or IA small I, right? Same thing takes place. Next, number 3. Let us now talk about B. IB. Yes, you may have well guessed this. You'll get B blood group, right? And in this case, if you take the red blood cell, the red blood cell will have another kind of protein attached to it, right? Another kind of glycoprotein or another kind of antigen. That's what we call it. Okay, and this is what we call the B antigen. Okay, so B antigen is attached to the red blood cells of this type of blood group, right? Same takes place when you have IB and small I. Same thing will take place. Right? That's it. Okay? Right. Now, the third case. Fourth case. Number 4. If you have small I and small I, well, you may have well guessed this as well. You will get O blood group. Right? So, in this O blood group case, if you take the red blood cell, there will be no antigen attached. Okay, no antigen is attached. All right, there is no antigen attached, no protein attached. It is plain and independent. Yeah. So that's it. And there is one more case here. Well, you'll say what? Well, if we have the IA and the IB together, what will happen? As I've told you, IA and IB both are equally dominant. They show codominance. So which one will be expressed? Well, both will be expressed, and you will get the blood group AB. And you see AB blood group, don't you? Many of you must also have AB blood group, right? Obviously you do, right? IA, IB together, you'll get AB blood group. And in this case, what will be the cell structure? Good question. Let us have a look. You will have a red blood cell which will have both kinds of antigen attached on the cell. So you have this kind of antigen, right? So you have this kind of antigen, that is the A antigen. And you have the B antigen as well, right? So this is the B antigen. Okay, so you have the A antigen, and side by side you have the B antigen. So both antigens are attached. Whereas in the O blood group case, there is no antigen. Right? So these are the different kinds of blood group cases you can have. Based on the type of antigen attached. You can have A blood group, you can have B blood group, you can have O blood group, or you can even have AB blood group, courtesy to codominance. Right? So this is all about your type of blood group. Right? Now, one thing here. This A antigen and this B antigen, right? If you bring a cell with A antigen and if you bring a cell with B antigen and if you try to put them together, it will cause blood transfusion. And this blood transfusion may lead to complications. Why? Because there are two different kinds of proteins and they have different structures. So the B blood group cannot be donated to a person with A blood group in times of need, and vice versa. Right? So A blood group and B blood group cannot work for each other. They are different and this will cause complications if it does happen. Next, A blood group person can donate to AB, no doubt, because that guy also has A antigens, so there won't be much of a reaction, right? The white blood cells are released in this case if there is a foreign, because it looks as if it's a foreign influence. But in the AB blood group, no such thing occurs, right? They are normal with it because they too have the same thing. Oh, bro, we're together. For O blood group, well, it can donate to anyone because again, that protein is not even present. So it can just go in and can help people. Oh, it's a universal blood group, right? That's it. A can't donate to B, B can't donate to A, B can't donate to O, or A also cannot donate to O. A can donate to AB, B can donate to AB, and O can also donate to AB. For that reason, AB is called the universal recipient because it can accept any kind of blood group, right? But there are certain small exceptions which we will discuss during the RH factor. That is the RH blood group. O can give to anyone, again with a small exception, and it is called the universal donor. Right? That's it. That's all for your AB and O blood group. Right? So I hope this is absolutely clear. Any doubts are welcome in the comment section below. Now we'll move on to the last kind of blood group, main blood group, which we're going to discuss. That is the RH factor or RH blood group. Now here, this RH basically stands for rhesus. Okay, rhesus. Now why rhesus? It's because this RH blood group first came into identification on a kind of monkey, right? On a monkey, and the name of that monkey was rhesus. So, Mr. Monkey Rhesus, you helped us discover this, so thank you. So it's the name of the monkey on which this RH blood group was first seen. And this is basically dependent on a special kind of antigen, right? And that is called the RH factor. RH factor is a special kind of antigen which has helped us determine this kind of blood group and which has helped us determine the A positive, A negative, and the signs on the various kinds of blood groups, right? So how does this work? Well, there are two cases. This RH factor is an antigen, right? So you can have a red blood cell with that ABO antigen, whatever. It can have that. But additionally, it can also have this kind of antigen. Right? And this is what we call the RH factor. Right? If the red blood cell has that RH factor, if it has the RH factor, then it is said to be positive. Positive blood group. Well, that's the thing behind the positive and negative. And if it does not have that RH factor, then there is no RH factor. At that time, we say that it is negative. Right? So basically, this RH factor is present, and that is what determines the positive. And if the RH factor is not present, it is called a negative blood group, right? Now, if an O blood group guy, right, we said O is universal donor. O can be either positive or negative. O negative will have no antigen, whether RH or ABO attached to it, right? So it can donate to anyone, right? Whether positive or negative. But if the blood cell has RH factor, right? If the blood cell has RH factor, then that person can only donate to positive blood group people, whether A, B, or O, but only to those who have a positive blood group. So O positive can only donate to positive blood groups. right? But O negative can donate to anyone. So in a real sense, we should call O negative as the universal donator or universal donor, right? So O positive can only donate to the positive, whether A, B, or O, but only to the positive, because the Rh factor again can cause complications. The white blood cells will be released and they'll fight with the Rh factor blood group, right? Because it is alien to them. But if there is no Rh blood group, Rh factor, or any antigen attached, then no problem. You can come. You can be part of the family, right? Because ultimately, if it's empty, if it's, doesn't have any protein attachment, it'll come into the body, it'll ultimately, regrow and develop similarly the other antigens required gradually, right? So this is the Rh blood group. If you have the Rh factor, you have A positive, B positive, or O positive, or AB positive. And if you don't have the Rh factor, like me, you have A negative, B negative, AB negative, or A negative, right? So let me just write that down for convenience. You can, with this, have A positive, B positive, AB positive, or O positive. And with this, without this rhesus factor, you can have A negative, B negative, AB negative, and O negative. This is mine. So this is how the blood group is determined, right? The only important part with respect to your NCRT, which you should remember here, is this part, right? The IAI and this allelic pair thing, because sometimes they ask you questions from here. But in a general competitive exam point of view, well, everything is important. All of this, right? So I hope you enjoyed this. And again, it's very nice of you to come up and see this video. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you understood something, you enjoyed, you learned something new, and thank you very much for joining me. Do like and subscribe. Any doubts are welcome in the comment section below. Any feedback is welcome in the comment section below. So see you next time. Bye-bye. Stay healthy, stay smart, and do keep studying. Bye-bye.